Welcome to Friday Night Readers. Fueled by coffee, we break down the books referenced on Gilmore Girls. Our little literary corner of the world helps you understand what the characters are talking so fast about and live in a world of books like Rory. Like short, read fast. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to our Friday Night Readers newsletter community on Substack. You'll get instant access to a free printable list of 450 plus books on Gilmore Girls. Plus, even more Gilmore-inspired content. Paid members get exclusive extras. Come hang out where the real Gilmore magic happens. FridayNightReaders.substack.com.
Hello, Friday Night Readers, and welcome to summer. The way I look at it is we're all that much closer to Gilmore Girls season fall. The show did bring us some pretty good summer episodes where the girls did everything from travel to Europe to Washington, D.C., a visit to Harvard, starting at Yale, and of course, lots of cliffhangers because many of these summer episodes came right at the end of seasons and the beginning of them. You may recall the infamous My Dean episode and Luke and Lorelai's first kiss. Personally, my absolute favorite still from Gilmore Girls in summer is in the summer episode of A Year in the Life, and that is when Rory and Lorelai are reading by the pool. If you too are reading by the pool this summer, I have compiled a list of my top 10 books that are actually set in summer. Here's the backstory. I have been book blogging since 2019, and I've always found it hard every year to find a list of very tightly curated books that are actually set in summer. What happens is that many people do their summer reading guides, and I've seen so many of them on the internet, and they're great. But they range from things like beach reads to nonfiction books, paperback books, and what can get lost in this shuffle is truly seasonal reading. So way back when, I set out to maintain a list of my curated books that are actually set in summer. This means that it is not just a book that is unputdownable or light or works well on a beach. It has to take place in this season. I think what compels me so much about this is my love of Gilmore Girls, which is such a seasonal show. There was even one particular summer where I read 30 books set in summer to continue to refine my list for you. I am now at a wild and crazy total number of 125 plus books read that were actually set in summer. I have narrowed that list down to just 10 for you. I like short lists because I feel like they're more approachable. I think that sometimes, while long lists are fun to read, they can also make it hard to pick just one or two that are right for you. The way I picked these was by going through my whole list and seeing what were my favorites, what was the most iconic, and what is generally really well loved by readers in the more widespread community. As Jenny Han said in The Summer I Turned Pretty, everything good, everything magical happens between the months of June and August. So grab a tall glass of lemonade and let's talk about everything from beach and lake settings to romantic flings, weddings, steamy vacations. And this is all to ground your reading life firmly in the present moment, which I think is so important, both as a Gilmore Girls superfan and as a reader. First up is 28 Summers by Ellen Hildebrand. I recommend this one to fans of New England settings like the Gilmore Girls love so much, as well as those who love that same time next year trope. Now, I have read almost all of Ellen Hildebrand's 30 plus books, most of which are set on Nantucket where she lives. Yes, she is the queen of the beach reads. And the one I picked to include on this list is the #1 best-selling 28 Summers. Here, Mallory and Jake decide to have a same time next year meeting that lasts every Labor Day weekend. But this becomes more complicated with age, marriage, and kids. So yes, this is a cheating novel, but trust me, somehow it still works. I think what I really took from it is that all relationships are different and complex. The other thing that really solidified its place at the top for me was that each year of the 28 Summers, she begins the chapter with a rundown of everything that was happening in pop culture at the time. As a millennial and someone who craves nostalgia, I loved this. I listened to this book in the early days of the pandemic when everything was shut down and we were totally isolated from the world. And I just felt like it saved me in that time. I'm not the only one. This is also a fan favorite of her readers. Okay, let's move along to Emily Henry, another queen of beach reads. The one I picked by her is actually titled Beach Read. I recommend this one to writers, many of which I know are on Substack, and fans of the enemies to lovers trope. And again, I have read all of her adult romance novels, but this best-selling debut is the one that sticks with me. I usually see it from her other fans somewhere in the top 3. So this one is about two writers, January, who is a best-selling romance writer, and Augustus, who is an acclaimed literary fiction author. They end up spending 3 summer months at this beachy lake home in Michigan, and there they challenge each other to beat their writer's block by writing something different than their norm. What I loved about this one is that they take these really creative dates in order to try to ignite their creative sparks, and they were just so fun and so memorable. At the same time, they have to cope with their past and the realization that they're falling for each other. And this realness and heaviness actually drew me into their love story. One of my biggest complaints about romance is sometimes that it can be too light and aspirational, and for that reason, unrealistic. That is not the case here. Then when you throw in Emily Henry's signature banter between the couple, it is an absolute win. I know that it is also being adapted, so it's a great time to read it before the adaptation comes out. Next up is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I recommend this one to lakegoers, and personally, I know lakegoers who absolutely cannot get enough of this one and think it really gives you all of those details that you feel with your senses when you're at a lake, from flies to creaky screen doors. I also recommend it to nostalgia lovers because we have a second chance romance. Every Summer After was actually Carly Fortune's best-selling debut, and it made her an author to watch every summer after that. See what I did there? Anyway, over 6 summers in a place called Barry's Bay, 2 teens, Persephone and Sam, fall in love, but then there is one Thanksgiving that tears them apart. Years later, she returns to Barry's Bay, and there she must face how she feels about him. As I mentioned, this really taps into that nostalgia of first love, but then we also have the second chance, and these are characters you absolutely cannot help but root for, which makes the story so beloved, and you also get the most charming seasonal setting. The best part about this one right now is that the adaptation releases on June 10th, 2026 on Amazon Prime, and it is my personal hope that it is this year's The Summer I Turned Pretty. Okay, The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. This might be my favorite one on the list. I recommend it for camp and mystery enthusiasts. So it is not just my book of the year 2024. Here is some of the accolades that back me up on this. It is also a Tonight Show book club pick, a New York Times bestseller, Book of the Month's Book of the Year, a Barack Obama summer reading list pick, and the book that Taylor Swift was listening to on her documentary. It totally shot up again in the charts after that documentary aired. Here, there's a 13-year-old girl named Barbara Van Laar, and she vanishes from her family's camp in the Adirondacks in 1975. And this actually comes years after her brother's disappearance from the camp. And what happens over the course of this summer unravels so many deep secrets and tensions among both the wealthy camp owners and the working class locals. When I tell you that I devoured this book, I am talking 500 pages in 2 sweltering summer days. It was the most delicious experience and such a page turner. I know that this missing child story may sound like a horror story, but it is actually a very nuanced literary mystery. It's so much less gratuitous than a thriller, and at the same time, it goes much deeper than crime fiction, which is more like a whodunit. In this one, it explores not just what happened, but what it reveals about really deep things like class and gender and survival. You'll also find so many great characters in this one. I especially loved the female detective. I know she has been cast recently in the upcoming adaptation. It is Ethan Hawke's daughter. I think her name is Maya Hawke, and she was in Stranger Things. She's going to be perfect in this role. Anyway, in this one, it is the answers about what happened that is absolutely chilling. And as I said, don't just trust me on it. Next is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I recommend this one to classic book readers who want that feeling in summer of being accomplished and maybe like a student again, but without too much of a challenge. It's short, around 200 pages, and it's pretty easy to read. This one is especially for people taking the Rory Gilmore reading challenge with us. I know you love classics, and The Great Gatsby is, in my humble opinion, the great American novel. So that's why I picked this one above other classics like A Room with a View, or maybe even a more modern classic like The Talented Mr. Ripley. Here, Fitzgerald transports us to Long Island, New York, and there we observe the most decadent jazz age parties of a man named Jay Gatsby told through the eyes of an outsider. So we're kind of like him, outside looking in on this lavish lifestyle in Jay's dark story. The seasonal events he hosts really loosen the reins of the characters, which is very symbolic of the season. And you also feel like the tensions are like rising steam in summer. The American dream is what it's all about, and it's always ever so slightly out of reach as Gatsby is yearning for his unrequited love for Daisy. The mix of both of these really just simmers throughout it like the hottest of summer days. Recommend that you pair it with the Leonardo DiCaprio adaptation, and in my mind as I say that, I'm thinking of that meme with him in a tuxedo holding up a glass, cheersing someone. The adaptation is just as decadent as the book. Next is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This one is for fans of the fake dating trope. Now, I have also read all of Abby Jimenez's books. They tend tend to be lighter romances, not too spicy, and they usually have things like quirky characters and mental illness and really cute dogs. But anyway, this number one best-selling GMA book club pick is my personal favorite. I also know that it is many other fans' favorites. It's usually right at the top of the list for her readers. In this book, every woman that Justin dates finds her soulmate just after breaking up with him. Then he meets Emma, who has a similar curse. So they create a plan where they will date each other as a summer fling to kind of get this over and go on and live happily ever after with someone else, breaking the curse. It's so simple that it just may work. In the process, though, they connect over mommy issues, and I really loved this part of the novel. This is what really grounds it. The problem is the chaos left by Emma's mom may be too complicated. I love the Minneapolis setting in all of her books, but because this one takes place in summer, we get the lightness and brightness of the beautiful season there, not just the cold and dark. The stars of this show, though, I'm telling you, are the couple themselves. They are one of the most quirky and lovable couples I have ever read about. They have the best chemistry. There is, I believe, one spicy scene in this one, not too spicy overall. And what I love is that they support each other through their difficult life issues. That is what love is really all about, isn't it? So what more can we ask for? Next up is Summer Sisters by Judy Blume, and I recommend this one to women who grew up on Judy Blume just like me. Although it was published in the 1990s, it was a recent Read with Jenna book club pick, and I believe she picked it because she wanted to adapt it. I don't know if that ever came to fruition. I haven't heard anything about it in probably a year or two. But regardless, it was one of her favorite books growing up too, and it was so pivotal to me in the 1990s that I have retained my copy to this very day. It was almost like in this book, Judy Blume walked from childhood to adulthood with me and other readers who grew up with her, and we could not be more grateful for an adult book, in her words. The story begins in 1977 when Victoria enters the privileged world of Caitlin, who becomes her friend and invites her to Martha's Vineyard. Now, I am a huge fan of Martha's Vineyard books. I will link my list of those books in the show notes for you as well. I go to Martha's Vineyard like a Gilmore every summer with my husband's family. So anyway, years later, Vix agrees to be Caitlin's maid of honor in order to finally understand what happened between them all those years earlier. Now, if I could describe this book in only one word to you, it would be saucy. And I kind of think that word describes many of Judy Blume's books, doesn't it? Like, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. What it does is that it pushes boundaries and it really dives into the juiciness and the emotional dynamics that are part of female friendships, especially at a young age. Next is The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I recommend this one to women who love to think about nostalgia from the summers of their youth. They really were the best, weren't they? So few responsibilities and no clue all of the complexities that were about to hit us in adulthood. Anyway, The Summer I Turned Pretty, I would describe as basically a beachy Dawson's Creek that is written for Gen Z, but also appeals to millennials' nostalgia. Are you with me on that one? Be still my coming of age heart for this love triangle with so much drama. And let me tell you, the 3-season-long Taylor Swift-filled adaptation is an absolute chef's kiss. I've watched a lot of book adaptations. I'm telling you, this one is one of the best. It's like a summer soap opera that really ping-pongs between this teenage love triangle and also weaves in other drama as well as some summer fun. The book is actually the first in a trilogy, and it follows Belly, who is a young Asian American teenager. I know Belly is a weird name. I believe her original name is Isabel or Isabella. But anyway, she, her single mom, and her brother share this beach house on a place called Cousins Beach, which I believe is supposed to be set in Massachusetts. It is a fake beach. And she goes there every summer with her mom's friend and her 2 sons, Conrad and Jeremiah. And as the title suggests, it starts right in that moment where a teenage girl goes from kind of awkward, that whole braces and glasses vibes to, noticeable by these teenage boys. But very shortly thereafter, life in the beach house takes a very difficult turn, and this changes all of their lives forever. I won't give anything up, but we get all kinds of family and friendship drama that is woven into the characters' love stories. Like Dawson's Creek, which I mentioned earlier, it is so over the top melodramatic and angsty and full of yearning, but we are here for every minute of it. Fans like me love this show so much that they're now creating a movie follow-up. Next is a real crowd pleaser. It is The Wedding People by Alison Espach. I hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, I recommend this one for readers who like a book that is neither too heavy nor too light, somewhere in the middle. This one was also a Read with Jenna book club pick, and it has sold 1 million plus copies. It really was the book of summer 2024, and once it picked up steam, that steam really took off for quite some time. And if you haven't seen the book cover yet, head to the show notes and look at the full post that accompanies this, because it is one of my favorite book covers of all time. It is a woman who is underwater holding up her arms, and in one of her arms is a bottle of champagne. What can I say? I am an absolute sucker for bubbly. I love this cover so much that I display it in my reading room. Anyway, the book brings together two very unlikely women at a fancy Rhode Island hotel for one of the women's weddings. So Phoebe ends up being the only hotel guest not attending the wedding. And here's where it gets dark. She's actually there to end her life after a terrible divorce she went through. The problem is that this is imposing on the very privileged Lila's perfectly planned day. In the process, she, as well as her guests, begin to confide in Phoebe, and it makes the two women at the heart of the story confront their plans for that weekend a lot more deeply. I know some of this sounds heavy, but please do not fear. Deep down, the reason this book was such a hit with readers is because it's about what really matters in life. Human connection. It is filled with so much humor and heart, the most lovable cast of characters who are all so quirky and totally give that vibe of forced proximity. And it is also a book that is driven by the most razor sharp writing. Highly recommend this one. Last but not least is a book that I consider to be a very underrated gem. It is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. And I recommend this one to fans of the author's 2025 hit, Hearth Lover. This was my book of the year 2025, and I know so many other readers picked that as their book of the year or somewhere within their top 10 mix. The reason I recommend this for fans of that book is there is a connection between the two books. I'm not going to say what it is because it's kind of a surprise, but what I will say is you can read either Writers and Lovers or Hearth the Lover first. But if you like either one of them, definitely pick up the other. Writers and Lovers is another Read with Jenna book club pick, and it's set all the way back in the analog 1990s summer. I know this is something we're all craving right now, where a 20-something Boston woman grapples with grief and dating while also trying to kickstart her writing career. Can you relate? Because I can. I think that this exact point of view, a quarter-life crisis, is one that so many of us have experienced, but it's often very underappreciated if you ask me. I think that once you get older, you kind of look back on that time in your life as, oh, it really wasn't that hard. But when you're experiencing it, it really is. And I find her story to be very Rory Gilmore. What I mean is it places you right into the mind of this very conflicted new adult who is on the cusp of this writing future, but she has not the slightest clue of what it will entail. And she's facing a lot of challenges along the way. So if you feel like you're a reader like Rory, like I am, this might be the one for you. So that's my top 10. But before you go, I would love for you to head to the show notes and visit the Substack post that accompanies this audio, because what I have placed at the bottom is my manifestation of a 90s reading summer. This is something that Rory Gilmore would have experienced, and I know, as I mentioned, it's something that we are all craving. Those analog vibes, the long summer days where we weren't glued to our phones and we had nothing but our books and maybe even some reading rainbow and a personal pan pizza to motivate us. So there, I have a little collage and a list of things you can do for exactly this type of summer. I've included my favorite classic rom-com adaptations like Clueless and She's All That, books you can read at night with a flashlight like Goosebumps, or maybe even the new book that I just purchased, The Making of American Girl, which is the most beautiful and nostalgic book I think I have ever seen. And this is one I plan to read outside. You should also make time to visit your libraries. This was one of my own favorite summer activities. And if you have a child, they can join Book It. I have linked it there, but if not, you can still reward yourself with Pizza Hut anyway. I do it myself, and no, I'm not joking. And I've even linked things like Lisa Frank stickers and popsicles for the most magical summer reading experience. With all of that said, let's have a summer and let's have it the Gilmore way. See you soon, Friday Night Readers.
Thanks so much for listening to Friday Night Readers. I love having you here in our little corner of the Gilmore Girls world. If you'd like even more feel-good fun, then upgrade to a free or paid email subscription membership at FridayNightReaders.substack.com. Paid members get exclusive extras like our guide to the books on Gilmore Girls, broken down by episode. You'll also unlock members-only posts, as well as full community access to our chats. It's the coziest virtual place like Stars Hollow, and your support helps keep this podcast going strong. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's episode, please take a minute to rate and review the show. It helps other Gilmore fans find us, which helps me provide you with more content like this. Until next time, life short, read fast.